In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to work a tubular cast on with a nice rounded edge in the round with waste yarn. Let's get started. In this method of tubular cast on, you will use a waste yarn to cast on half the number of stitches required by the pattern. So here I've got started 40 stitches, and we will start with our first foundation row of our tubular cast on. So I'm going to go to this end of I'm not joining this to work in the round. I'm just going to the end right where I had started my cast on. And I'm going to join my color that I'm working my tubular cast on in. And I'm just going to go into the first stitch, join my yarn, just by kind of making a little loop over the needle and holding these together. And I'm going to knit that first stitch. And then I'm going to knit the second and all other stitches in this round. So this is your first foundation round, and you're just knitting into the waste yarn cast on each stitch all the way till you get to the end of the round. If you're working with a smaller number of stitches, you won't be able to fit them on even the smallest circular needles, so you'll use double points instead. So I've cast on a smaller number of stitches just to show you how this is going to look. So it's still just across 3 needles, and when I go to join my main color here, I will be joining it on the first needle. And the same way we'll go, as on circulars, we're going to knit into all of these stitches first, and then I'll come show you how we join that in the round. As we get to the end of the round, this is where we are going to join the work in the round. So right now it is just a flat row here. We're going to make sure that our knitting is not twisted, so that all of the red stitches there are on the top. We're going to place our marker to mark the beginning of the round, and then we are going to join to work in the round here. So now we are getting ready to do the second foundation row of the tubular cast on, and this is worked by knitting 1 stitch, and then the next stitch is going to be an increase. So I said that we started with half the number of stitches that we eventually want, which means on one of these rows, this row in particular, row 2, we are going to increase every other stitch and get to the number of stitches desired for our project. So I've knit the first stitch. The next stitch is a make 1 purl, and we do that by bringing the yarn to the front, and we use our right hand needle tip to lift that little bar in between the 2 stitches, and we purl it. And then you take your yarn to the back. And that is going to be repeated all the way around. So I'll show you again. We make 1, or we knit 1, and then we make 1 purl. So we bring our yarn to the front, pick up the little bar in between the stitches, and purl it. And we will do that all the way around on all of the stitches, so that by the time we get to the end, we will have twice the amount of stitches that we started with. One other way to do the make 1 purl is to, if it's difficult for that right hand needle tip to reach under that bar, you can use your left needle tip to go in from the front and kind of lift it up nicely so that your right can come in and purl it. Same effect. So knit 1 stitch, use this needle tip to pick it up, and then purl that little bar. Either way, it looks the same when it's all done. As you get to the end of the round, you'll knit that last stitch, and then your make 1 purl will be on the bar between the beginning and end of the round here. So you'll still kind of lift it up, whichever way you prefer. Sometimes it's easier for me to use my left needle tip, and you will purl into that little bar, make that little extra stitch there, slide your beginning of round marker, and then proceed to work round 3 of the foundation row. Now this round is worked, the pattern is a knit 1, slip 1 with yarn in front, and that's what's repeated all the way around. Okay, so we're gonna knit 1, and then the next stitch is going to be slipped with the yarn held in front. So I move my yarn to the front, and then I simply slip that stitch from the left needle to the right needle without doing anything to it. Then I move my yarn to the back in preparation for knitting the next stitch. So knit 1, move yarn to the front, and slip. Move yarn to the back. Knit 1, move yarn to the front, slip, move yarn to the back. You can already see that this is starting to kind of round out and roll a little bit visually. And this is where it starts to get exciting. So I'll meet you at the end of the round after we have knit and slipped our way all around the stitches. Okay, so at the end of that row number 3, we're just going to slip that last stitch. So this was our slip 1 with yarn in front. So when my yarn is in front, I'm going to slip that last stitch that we made on round 2. I'm going to move my yarn to the back and slide my marker. And now we are ready to start the last round of the tubular cast on. So this is round number 4, foundation row 4. And on this one, we are going to begin with a slipped stitch and then work every other stitch from here. So this one says slip 1 with the yarn in the back. Now we did just slip this last stitch of row 3, but that's okay. We can slip 2 in a row. So our yarn is in the back. We're going to slip that first stitch over onto our right needle. We're going to bring our yarn to the front and purl 1 stitch. So again, yarn in the back, slip 1, so slip 1 with yarn in back, move yarn to the front, and purl 1. And repeat that all the way around. Marker. Now you are ready to begin a knit 1, purl 1 ribbing, and you can just do that as normal, knit 1, purl 1. And then I usually tell knitters to knit at least about an inch of ribbing before they go back and remove the waste yarn. So once you remove the waste yarn, you'll be able to see how stretchy and beautiful that rounded tubular cast on is. So I'm going to knit up a little bit further, and then I'll show you what it looks like and how we pull this out. Okay, so now that we're about an inch into the knitting, I'm going to show you how I cut out that provisional kind of waste yarn cast on that we used. Use some nice sharp little scissors, and you can really cut anything that is the waste yarn. You just want to make sure that you're not cutting, obviously, your main yarn. So I'm just going to take a snip right here, and then you can use another needle, or anything kind of sharp. You're going to probably have to cut both strands to kind of start just like pulling out that waste yarn a little bit at a time. Obviously, if I had another needle, I'd show you with the needle, but I just have these scissors. So I am just slowly going to be kind of gently pulling out. You can cut these again, kind of wherever, but pulling out this yarn that was used for the cast on. And as you get it out, you will be able to look and see your tubular cast on. Note how it rolls kind of from one side to the other, has a nice rounded edge to it. This is a really nice edge when you're making mittens or a hat or something that is done in this one by one ribbing that has a really, really nice effect to it. So I like to pull out all of the waste yarn cast on, except for a little bit on each side of the beginning of the round. And the reason I like to do this is because leaving it in there kind of shows me where to weave in my end when I go back to finish. So I'll leave it like this while I knit the rest of my item. And then when I go back to finish this, I will put this end on a needle and kind of weave through where that waste yarn is going to kind of connect it and make it all look really nice and clean. So now that waste yarn cast on is gone and we have this nice, beautiful, rounded tubular cast on. You can do it.